welcome to our Friday weekly live stream. Hope everything is sounding good and that everybody's feeling good out there. Looks like our signals are coming in right. Very good. So today we're going to be talking about the Vertex Boost MK2 and the video that we released this week with Justin Derrico, who's the guitarist for Pink and also for NBC's The Voice. And so he did a really cool demo. If you haven't checked it out, you should certainly check it out. If not for the boost, just for Justin Derrico's guitar playing, which is sensational. And he does a really cool thing where he uses two Vertex boosts in his signal path. He uses one in front of the amp first as like a gain booster to add saturation to other effects. And then he uses another one in the effects loop as like a master volume boost. And some people might say, well, what if your amp already has a master volume, boost or has a boost built into it? And some amps do have that, except he uses so many amps that it's not something that he can rely upon on unit to unit to unit. So having the Vertex boost in the loop always ensures that no matter whether he's using a Bogner or a Marshall or a Friedman or whatever he wants to use, that he always has that boost on tap, and he can always have that programmed into his rig. So he shows all the ways to use it. He shows a bunch of different guitars. He shows Strat, Tele, Les Paul, and he shows them clean and dirty, and you get to see how it reacts in different places. And even if you're not even interested in the Vertex boost, it's a great detailing on kind of how boosts affect things based on the position. So even if you hate the Vertex boost or you don't ever want to buy one of our products, you could presumably do this with different boosts and get similar effects in terms of how it affects the preamp. You won't have the expression control and maybe the quality of buffer, the linearity of our boost, but you could still pull off the same approximation, which is really cool. So today our live stream is going to cover some of the applications of the Vertex boost, the ways that you can use it. We'll, of course, always be taking questions, so I highly recommend that you get in your question now. I tried to go sequentially unless there's a super chat or something like that, and then I'll make sure that I prioritize those because obviously those people are paying for an answer, and so I want to be respectful of that and appreciative of the fact that they're offering that, but certainly there's no pressure or obligation to do that. I will try to get through as many questions as I can, and if you don't get your question answered, you can always copy it and paste it in the comments, and I think most people here will tell you that I try to answer almost every single one of them, so feel free to do that. I don't know that the comment section's open until the stream is over, but just wanted to throw that as an aside. And also, we're doing some giveaways today. We have some cool new stuff that we haven't had before. We have 20 feet of Bestronix patch cable. This is, I forget what the model number is, like 06. I can't even really see it here, 06 or 78 or something like that. So we have 20 feet of this that we're going to be giving away so that you can DIY your own patch cables. These are great quality patch cables, and we're in with our patch cable shootout. We also have 20 feet of the DC power cable that Bestronix manufactures, so you can make your own power cables, presumably, with this, which is cool. And we also have a one spot from True Tone, the wall wart, that we're going to be giving away. We also have a 3-pack of NYXLs, courtesy of our friends over at Diodario. Shout out to Devin at Diodario. And we also have a Diodario string winder, which is great if you want to change your strings or you want to be able to even cut some of your strings. It's got everything sort of integrated in one, so you can do acoustic, you can do electric, and you can snip off those sharp ends. This is a great string winder. We use it on all of our instruments, whether it's here at my house or at the showroom in Burbank. We use these exclusively, and we'll have these shipped right to your door, which is great. And basically the way the giveaway component works is we'll ask some questions that have to do with the video that we released this week. Again, the one with Justin Derrico and the Vertex Boost. If you answer these correctly, you'll be able to win one of these items. Again, shipped right to your door no matter where you live. You could be here in the United States. You could be overseas. You could be Canada, wherever. We're going to ship it right to you. So let's start with starting our timer here, because every 8 minutes we're going to do a giveaway. So I'm going to start that, and after 8 minutes expires, we'll do our first giveaway. But I think let's first get into some of the basics of the clean boost. So one of the things about the Vertex Boost that's sort of a differentiator of a lot of the other boosts out there. And there's certainly lots of great ones. And I'm actually going to recommend 5 boosts or 4 boosts at the end of the or at some point during this live stream that I think are also really great and you should consider if you're either, you want to try something different than the Vertex Boost, or you don't like the Vertex Boost, or whatever the reason may be. I'll give you some recommendations of other great ones as well, but I want to talk about like what are kind of the key differentiators. And I think the biggest one of what our boost does that no other boost had done, certainly before the time that it came out, was that it offered this expression jack, which is in essence an insert jack that creates this low impedance sort of firewall in the middle of the actual boost, and it allows you to insert any volume pedal or expression pedal either by way of an insert cable, which is kind of like a Y cable, or a TRS cable if it's going to an expression pedal. And it allows you to not only control your volume as a normal volume pedal would, but also allows you to control the boosted output whenever you boost on top of whatever the amount of output that you have based on whatever gear you've got set up. And the cool thing about that is that the boosted level, according to the volume or expression, is set by where you put the boost pot. So if you set it to 8 dB of boost, let's say, it's going to go up to 8 dB on the volume or expression pedal. And then if you click off the boost, the volume pedal still works and it's still running through the boost, but it only goes up to unity gain. So it's almost like you have a preset that you can roll up to. And this was something that was really invented, not so much, we invented, I guess, this idea, and it's not anything that's like groundbreaking. It's just nobody had done it before, because a lot of the session musicians were saying that they didn't have a clean boost on the market that wouldn't change the tone of the guitar. And there were so many volume pedal tone suck issues, and there weren't really any high quality buffered volume pedals that they kind of wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And so not only did we offer the ability to have the clean boost, we also offered the ability to be able to connect a volume pedal to it, manipulating the boosted output, but also just to give them a fully transparent volume pedal no matter what impedance volume pedal they put in there. They could put a 10K pot, they could put a 25K, they could put 250K. It doesn't matter. It's like irrelevant. The only thing that will be the same is the taper. So like, it can't transform the taper of the pot to be smoother or anything like that. Whatever the taper is the taper. That's set. But in terms of the transparency, impedance no longer is an issue, and this is a really cool thing. So enough of me kind of talking about that. I want to show you one example, and this is with my friend Michael Thompson, and he's going to show you how he uses this with his rig. And he's going to use it, using an expression pedal. He's actually just using a Roland EV5 here, so just like the cheapest possible expression pedal that you could think of. It's made out of plastic, but there's no sonic consequence anymore of using a cheap volume pedal, because again, it's just sort of a glorified expression for the boost, and it's sort of the quality of it is sort of irrelevant at this point. If you like the taper of an EV5, God bless you, you can use it. It's not a big deal in terms of the sonic aspect. Now, I can't, obviously the boost can't change the reliability, but it won't affect any of the tone of the actual unit itself. So I'm gonna play this little clip of Michael Thompson, and then when we get back from that, we'll do our first giveaway. We might be slightly early, but I think it's a better time to do that, just kind of based on the outline that we're going off of here in terms of the sequencing. And you'll see he has the Vertex Boost version 1, and in circuit-wise, they're really identical. There's no differences. It's just that the version 2 is like 40% smaller than the version 1. So here it is with Michael Thompson. Let's check it out.
Volume pedals, I gotta have them. It's like growing out of my foot. Every bit of my dynamics and the whole tonal thing I do with the guitar is very connected to a volume pedal. So I'm using the Vertex Clean Boost. The main thing about this pedal that works so great with my volume pedal situation is that it has an expression pedal out. You can use any volume pedal into that jack. Just a regular old passive volume pedal. It's literally your sound made louder. And I use just a little bit of it most of the time just to enhance what I already have going on. that's something that's become a permanent part of my studio and my live thing.
So you can see there that it's certainly. Oh, and I'll move our our giveaway clock back to full so that we can start a new one, because I want to do the giveaway now, just kind of based on our sequencing. But you can see from Michael Thompson that certainly it's got a huge benefit for him. He's a guy that's always been a huge proponent of it. Has really used it since that pedal came out in 2014. I think we released it, or late 2013 maybe. So he's been kind of on board since the beginning. He's got the new one and already loves it. We're going to shoot a follow-up video with him here, I think, kind of toward the end of the month, so that we can get sort of an update with the newest, latest, and greatest version. But I don't suspect that his testimony will change very much. But with that said, let's do our first giveaway. And again, how this is going to work is I'm going to put up a question on the screen. First person to answer this question correctly is going to win our very first giveaway item, which is going to be our D'Addario string winder, the Pro Winder. So the question will come up the screen. I'll recite it. You're going to answer this in the comments section or in the chat. First person to answer it correctly wins, and it's going to be roughly based on some of the discussion topics that were mentioned in the video with Justin Derrico this week. So let's check it out. First question is, where would you place your boost to control the overall output of your signal? Where would you place your boost in order to control the overall output of your signal? This could be a Vertex boost. This could be any boost. And there's actually a few answers to this. So where would you place your boost? Because it would depend if you have like you could have potentially two places you could place it if you had an effects loop amp. And if you just had a clean amp with just a regular input, then there really would probably only be one place you could realistically use it. So it kind of depends on your amp, but there could be potentially two correct answers for this, and we'll accept either one of those two answers. So go ahead and throw in that in the chat there, and we'll do it. Looks like we got Michael Lucas as our winner for question number 1. He's going to get that D'Addario string winder. Congrats to Michael Lucas. Sorry, Michael Lewis is a author of Moneyball. But congratulations to him. And if you didn't win, no big deal, because I'm going to start the clock again. I'll even give you a 5-minute bonus. Well, sorry, not 5 minutes. It was maybe 5 seconds, but it looks like it restarted the clock just from 0. So 8 minutes, we'll have another giveaway. So no sweat if you didn't win. We'll have another item to give away that we shipped right to your door. But let's keep on talking about a few of the things going on with the Vertex Boost and with clean boost in general. Another cool way to use the boost, and I'm going to kind of show you some diagrams here so we can try to kind of get a sense of it. So basically, how Michael Thompson was using it is sort of a variation of this diagram here, where, he's using everything in front. I think on that demo, he was using a Bassman. And so he kind of had like his guitar would go in his overdrive distortion pedals. He had the boost, which is connected to a volume and expression. And then the boost continued to kind of like his chorus and delay. And I think his rack was in there at some point because he always uses that H3000. And then it went into the front of the Bassman. But another way that you could use it is kind of like in the way that we just mentioned in the question, is as a master volume. You could use it in the effects loop. So this is another alternative way that you could use it. So the guitar would go into the overdrive pedal, would go into some sort of modulation. Again, this is just a fictitious signal path that's not really, meaningful so much, other than the fact that there's an effects loop here. And then in the effects loop, you go into the boost, which is connected externally to a volume or expression pedal. And then that goes into delay and reverb, and you can use this as sort of an amp booster. Basically, the equivalent of having an onboard boost inside of the actual amp is essentially what this is doing, because it's coming after the preamp section and before the power amp section. And then you're able to control the volume there. So not only as a master volume control with the expression, but also a master volume boost by placing it in the loop. That's another way you could use it to, in essence, get the same thing out of it. Another cool way to use it that we talked about a little bit, not so much in this video, but generally, is using it as an actual dual buffer, because there are two buffers inside of the Vertex Boost MK2. So in essence, showing it this way is the guitar's coming into the boost is now using a insert cable or a Y cable, and it's basically grouping in the signal path of your effects chain, and then it's returning back into the boost, and then that's going into your amp. And so you have an input buffer on the input of the boost, and then you have an output buffer on the return of the insert that's collecting all of the guitar pedals in the middle of the boost. And then you can use that boost as an output boost or as an input boost, depending on how you connect the insert cable and which one is connected, or whether the input or the output is connected to the ring or the tip, and where you're connecting your guitar and your amplifier. So you can use the boost either pre-pedals or post-pedals, depending on how you do that. And we have wiring diagrams for both of those, depending on how you want to wire it up and where you want the boost to be placed if you wanted to use it as a dual buffer. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do it, but I want to show you one of the ways that Justin Derrico is using it. And in this example, he's using it totally clean, but I believe in this example he's using it in front of the amplifier. And Mejia can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't think we made a distinction. I don't remember which part we pulled this section of the video from. I think this is the one where he's just using a clean Strat in front of the amp, going straight in and using that first stage volume, because again, he uses two. He uses one in front, first in the chain, and one at the very end, or in the effects loop toward the end of the chain, but before his like time-based stuff. So let's check out this Justin Derrico one. You can get a little example of it clean with his Strat. So you can see in that example, it's just really adding more volume. It's not really changing the chord tone. If you crank the Vertex Boost enough, you could probably get it to clip the input of some amplifiers, but that wouldn't be the boost itself clipping. It would just be, the same as if you added a bunch of gain into the input of any sort of preamp section. That's not any fault of the pedals. That's just the amp and the headroom available, and whether that would clip the preamp or not. But that's a really cool usage where you can kind of either, again, put it in front, put it in the effects loop, or put one in front and one after your gains. It certainly transforms kind of what the sound is. And again, putting that Vertex Boost first, using it as sort of like a pre-drive, like this, you put it up front. This is kind of how Justin was using it in that clip, where he's going guitar into the boost, and he's got it connected to an expression pedal using the Ernie Ball VP Jr. in this case, and then goes into his drives, choruses, delays, etc., and then into the front of the amplifier, and then also has another one in the loop. So he's got one there, and then he also has, let's see, this should be the other example here. He's got one there, and then he's got one in the loop like this. So he's got two of them going on at the same time. And in one of the examples we actually showed there, where he's kind of using it for a really high gain lead tone, he's using it in front of a Marshall that has no effects loop. And that's pretty cool when he's just like blasting the front end of an already pretty high gain JMP 50. It's a pretty great sound. And I know that our clock has sort of restarted here, so I'll put one more minute on the clock or so, and we'll do a giveaway in just a minute. So those are kind of the primary ways that I can kind of see that the Vertex Boost would be most valuable for most people. And we're going to go through kind of more of these examples, not today, but in other videos that are coming. So Justin kind of showed the placement of where two boosts could live to kind of get you different tones, and this could apply to the Vertex Boost or anything that you wanted. We're going to do one with Paul Jackson Jr. that's probably going to be releasing in another week or two, where we really get into the volume pedal aspect. And as a session musician, Paul Jackson Jr. has played on all the Michael Jackson hits, has just played on, practically everything in anything that involved really beautiful, clean funk guitar. Even as recent as the Daft Punk stuff, he was on all that. And he really talks about the importance of volume pedals in the studio and the sonic consequences of using them, and then kind of how the Vertex Boost eliminates that issue and is a real problem-solving tool for him. So we're going to get into that and using some different volume pedals. He's going to show how it's really the same, whether you're using an expression pedal, whether you're using a volume pedal. So he's got some exotic volume pedals. He's got some Dunlop expression pedals, and we kind of go and show the differences between those, which I think will be really cool and sort of illustrate more points about how it can be used and the benefits. But it's time for another giveaway. So for this giveaway, I'm going to be giving away some Diodario NYXL 3-pack of 10s. Again, answer the question correctly that comes up on the screen, and we get this shipped right to you. First person to answer correctly in the chat. So the question is, what is the benefit of using the Vertex Boost to control your volume pedal or expression pedal rather than having it in your signal path? So rather than just having it sequentially, what's the benefit of having it wired into the Vertex Boost versus just having it just sitting out there, just in the signal path as an ordinary volume pedal might be? What is the advantage of having it there? First person to answer correctly wins. There could be a couple of different ways to say it, but it looks like we already got Brian Mitchell. Got this one. Congratulations to Brian Mitchell. But if you didn't win, no big deal, because I'm restarting the clock in another 8 minutes. We'll do some more talking or get some more questions, rather. We'll do some more talking, but we'll also answer another question about the boosts, or we'll create another question about the boost. And if you answer that correctly, there's still 3 more items to win, so no big deal on that. But I think we've talked enough about our boost. I think we should talk about some other boosts that I think are really great and might be good alternatives if you're considering getting a boost or the Vertex Boost is too expensive. Of course, you can always find the Vertex Boost MK1, which is really the same exact thing. It's just bigger. So let's go into some of those other boosts. So, of course, my pick naturally is going to be the Vertex Boost MK2. Love this pedal. Sounds great. Nice and small. Kind of took into account all the considerations that people asked for to get it smaller. So we did that. But another great one that I really like is from Creation Audio Lab, and that's the MK4.23. This is an excellent, very linear boost made by my buddy Alex Welty, Skip Welty over at Creation Audio Labs. Another one that I really like, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's really a competitor of our boost. I really think that this is actually a great boost up front. I comparatively to our boost, I think it's really great because it's got a lot of color and control. Is the RC Booster is still a classic, and I think up front they sound really good, and they're really dialable to kind of give you a little compression, a little extra juice. It's sort of the antithesis of what my boost does, because this does add some color and a little bit of gain in distortion, very low amount of distortion, but still has that on tap. And I think that this is a really, really great one, and I really love how it sounds. I still think they're super useful, and there's newer versions of it, but I just feel like this is, to me, this was kind of like the, one of the really, when boutique pedals kind of became more mainstream, this was certainly in that canon of boutique pedals. And so I really like the RC Booster. And then another one that I really like is the Demeter Fat Control. And this I really like because this was in essence the same preamp that was on most of the Tyler guitars in the 80s and 90s, and even I think it might have even been on some of the Schecters that were kind of predated when Jim Tyler and Tom Anderson kind of split off from there and started their own things. This is a really great boost. It's good to put up in front, makes it really fat, kind of emulates really well those kind of classic, kind of like shimmery, clean tones that you would hear in the 80s and 90s, especially amongst the studio musicians. Those are 4 that are really great that I think that you should definitely consider if you have never heard of those boosts or checked out those boosts or don't want a Vertex Boost. Those are all really great ones that, some of them, I think that probably the closest to ours in terms of the linearity is probably the Creation one. I think it's the only thing I don't like about it, and this is just a personal taste thing, and I've told Skip this, who designs it, that the input impedance is so unloaded that I just think it doesn't resemble an amplifier anymore. I think it's like 10 megs or something like that. So it's like way higher than any amplifier. But that's a sound that some people may like, and some people do gravitate toward these really unloaded sounds. So I think that there could be people in there that are just like, they're going to love that. But again, that's kind of more of a taste thing. But I think it's very well built. unquestionably. That would just be my only thing about it that I don't like. But I'd say that's closest in terms of like it's super clean, like doesn't distort, like doesn't do anything. I mean, it affects the tone some ways because it's affecting the pickup loading if you're using it first. But other than that, I think it's really great and linear, and it's not gonna have any real color to it other than that. But let's go to some questions because we got a lot of time, and we got about 4 more minutes until our giveaway. So I'll do some more questions. We'll do the giveaway. We'll come back to questions, and I think we're leaving a lot of time today for questions, which is good because I'm rarely finishing these. And thanks to Mejia for regulating in there. If you have any questions, please do put them down because I try to order them sequentially in terms of how I answer. So just help me get to everything if you put it in early. So first question from Total Evo 7. Was there going to be a video about how to wire a tap tempo switch? Mod it with another switch and program that to the specular tempest. Well, I think that they give GFI gives like a diagram for it, or they give a schematic. Excuse me. They give a schematic for it, and basically it's just a TRS jack, and the ring goes to one side of a momentary switch, and the tip goes to the other side of a different momentary switch, and they both have a shared sleeve, so that's the same foot switch for the RJM bank up and bank down. It's the same one for the HX bank up, bank down. It's a pretty typical switch. So I think I have that. I think it's on our website already. You could just copy that same diagram. So it should be there. Yeah, throw in your gear-related question. This is from Kingsley. I have a question. Can Strymon Timeline and Big Sky send MIDI information? I noticed when I turn a knob in the Timeline, it affects some settings in the Big Sky. I connect them through MIDI. Yeah, so I mean, you can just have them be set as throughs, which is typically how people use them. But if you have some sort of controller that you're using, it can affect both of them depending on whether they're transmitting on the same MIDI channel or not. So I don't know how you're setting them up or whether they're used with the switcher, because it may not be that one's affecting the other. It could be that they're set to the same channel and you've got program changes happening on both the same channels. So it seems as though one might be affecting the other, but really it's your switcher that might be sending the messages to them. Chris Brown. This pedal looks awesome. In light of just volume, tone, can you talk about how it's different than just turning up your amp? Well, I would say that it is very similar in just turning up your amp. And in fact, I think in the original demo we did, Mark Lettieri was saying it's the same as just going and turning up your amp. Now, the issue with that is that you don't want to be taking a solo on stage and then have to walk back to your amp to turn it up to make a solo get louder. It seems to be much more practical to just be able to have that device on the floor and be able to kick it on and off as you need it in order to either take the solo or to get louder in the mix. And the other thing is that you can scroll up and down on that with the volume pedal or expression pedal, so you can bring it back to unity gain and then go up to however many decibel boost. And the original way that this is really intended to be used is a lot of the studio players were saying that they would set sort of like their maximum output based on whatever, they would set the boost to basically whatever their maximum output needed to be for that part or that song. And so they knew no matter what they did with their volume pedal, they would never exceed whatever the output level that they needed. And they kind of had that to spare on tap. And so they would sort of be riding the volume pedal and sort of fixing it in such a way where it would maybe be approximately unity gain when it was maybe midway, and then when it would go up to the toe down position, they'd be 8 dB over unity or 10 dB over unity or whatever it is that they wanted. And so it almost like allowed them to be able to really fine tune the output based on whatever the song was, and so that they never would really overshoot the mark. So before we continue with more questions, we got another giveaway, so let's do that. This next one is for a True Tone 1 spot. This is a great wall wart if you just need to power kind of a one-off pedal. It's always good to just have one around just in case you need to power up a single pedal. We use them on occasion for certain things when we're just trying to test. Anyway, this is available. So first person to answer this question will win a True Tone one spot. So the question is, comes up on the screen, answer it in the chat. Question is, who does Justin Derrico play guitar for? This should be a real easy one. Who does Justin Derrico play guitar for? And this could technically be it could actually be more answers if you're thinking historically, because he played for a lot of different bands. But he's been kind of a mainstay with kind of one organization and one individual for many years. First person to answer that in the chat is going to win the one spot by True Tone. Let's see who's got it. I didn't think it was going to be a complicated one. This is our guy, Justin Derrico. And Patrick Carroll got that one. So congrats to Patrick. Patrick was paying attention in class. Good job, Patrick. But if you didn't win, no problem, because we still have 2 more giveaway items to do. I'll give those away in 8 more minutes. We have 2 more items to give away. We have, of course, the DC power cable, 20 feet. That should be more than enough to do your whole rig. And also 20 feet of the Bestronix patch cables, all in bulk. You can definitely build a nice rig with both those. So we have those to give away. We'll give away one of those in another 8 minutes. Let's keep going to some questions. Patrick, the winner, actually, of our last giveaway question. How would you pair the Steel String Supreme and Vertex Boost? Well, I would use the Vertex Boost after it if my plan was to just add output and I wanted to be able to control the volume. If I wanted to add more gain or saturation to it, I could use it in front. But I think you should probably place it based on, 1, whether you want more gain or just more overall level output, and 2, whether you like to have a volume before overdrives or after overdrives, because that's going to somewhat dictate, the application, because you can't put the boost before an overdrive but have the volume pedal occur after. If it's in the loop of the boost, it's going to be contained by that. So that's, I think, the question to ask yourself in terms of best pairing. I know you've talked about this in another video, but how does a clean boost compare to a lot of the adjustable boosts? Well, our clean boost, I would just say the biggest difference between them is, firstly, its linearity, that it doesn't have any color whatsoever. And I think, secondly, that it doesn't have any we don't have an EQ on it deliberately, because if it's truly clean, then there shouldn't be any need to do any EQ. And if you really need an EQ, get an EQ, or if you want gain, get a gain pedal. And so I think that there's applications for all these. And I don't think that the RC booster was really intended to be totally clean, because it's got, gain manipulation, volume manipulation controls. You have an EQ control for the bass and the treble. So it was made to be a shaping tool. The Spark, equally, the larger one at least, was made to be a shaping tool. It has I think the same controls as the RC booster does. The EP is designed to be a preamp that's, derivative of an Echoplex that's designed to add a color and mid-range to the sound. So these are boosts that are designed to produce an effect, whereas I would say our boost is not designed to be an effect. It's just designed to drive more output without any color, and then again attach the volume pedal, which I don't think any company I've seen do except for Moog. They do it as a voltage control thing, which is not a transparent way to do it. But I don't think, again, that was their intent. I think that they were kind of they wanted that feature of the expression, which is cool. And I think the boost was not necessarily designed to be super linear. It was just designed to be a volume boost. They could have some tweakability. They go about it a much different way than we do, in not as linear of a way. And I think that they'd admit that the voltage control way is a more expensive and less efficient way to get a linear boost. But again, I don't think that their intent was to do what we're doing. I think that they had their system of how they would do expression and things like that, and they integrated that into a boost pedal. that they design. And the boost circuitry, I don't think is similar at all between the two pedals. It's just they utilize some of that expression component to it. Let's see. Ezekiel, will the boost eliminate having to have a Mesa Boogie high wire? It depends on how you use it. So if you're using it as a dual buffer and a boost in front of the amp, yes. If you're trying to use it in the boost in the effects loop or something like that, then it won't replace what the Mesa Boogie does. So it's presuming you're using it in front of the amp, depending on how you wire it in, using an insert cable, you can have it replace the high wire. You could also have both. Like, our boost is so linear, the buffer is very high quality. It's not like, it would do way less damage than any Boss or Ibanez or sort of JFET or BJT buffer would do in series with your pedal board. So it's not like if you already had a high quality buffer and you threw this in there that it's like now it's ruined. It's not. I use this with other buffers on boards all the time, and it still serves its purpose. And so it's not like it's a disqualifier if you already had a Mesa Boogie high wire and you wanted to add in this boost. The boost in the high wire is actually pretty good, I think. It just doesn't have the expression control. Let's see. How do you wire a splitter on your personal board interface? So I have diagrams for it, but basically you're just paralleling off the output buffer when you do a splitter. And so that's how I would do it. You just parallel off the output buffer, or you could make a Y cable off the output buffer. It's really the same thing. That's how almost every splitter is done. And then, you could, of course, do it galvanically if you were going to 2 amps. But in this case, I didn't do it with any sort of isolation for the splitter, since everything is really close to each other on the board. There wasn't really a lot of possibility for any ground loop or something like that to occur. But if you looked in some of the commercial splitters, they'll often put an isolation transformer in there because they don't know if you're going to use it for a pedal board or if it's going to go to 2 amps. And so it's best if you're going to use amplifiers that are, presumably maybe on dissimilar grounds or things like that, and you need some polarity controls and things like that, you would want to have a transformer. But for the board itself, if it's just splitting to the balanced output of the 2 notes, I didn't have a need to do that. And there are diagrams for that. For like a tuner out would be the same type of thing you would do to split. Let's see, Jason, how sacrilegious would it be if my pedal board solely had an FM3 and a Polytune as the only pedals, with the rest being taken up by my PS170 wireless receiver and surge protector? I mean, it wouldn't be sacrilegious. People do it all the time. I think it's just one tool to use. I don't have anything bad to say. I mean, I think I have an XFX right here, an XFX2, and I use it just to do processing in post, like a wet, dry, wet effect. This is the wet left and right that my clean, dry, or my dry amp feeds into that after the slaved out of the line level output. So they can be great for certain things. I had a friend that was just asking about it the other day, whether he should get an FM3 or a Kemper, or what he should use for traveling with. So I don't think that there's anything that disqualifies you. It's just one way to do it. Let's see. I know your disdain for shite patch cables, but 10 years ago, I wasn't hip to you and your knowledge. Thus, I have 10 Ernie Ball older 6-inch patch cables. Are they bad for capacitance? I don't know. I don't know where they fall in terms of the quality of the older Ernie Ball patch cables. But if they've been reliable for you and you don't notice that, I mean, the easy way to make the determination is put your pedal board that has those patch cables in a loop, a true bypass loop, and compare that to the guitar plugged into the amp versus bringing in the pedal board with those cables. Now, it may not be only the cables that cause that problem, but it'll certainly give you an indication of whether you're losing much signal or much tone through running through these different series of effects. So that could be something that would help you sort of understand whether there's a problem with or there might be some issue with the rig. Could be related to the patch cables, could be related to the pedals themselves, or could be 100 different things it could be. But it'll give you a sense, and if it's transparent, then maybe it's just not a concern at this point. But it's time for another giveaway because we just elapsed our next 8 minutes. So this is going to be for the DC patch cable, raw cable, 20 feet from Bestronix. This is a cable that you can use to wire up all of your DC power cables so you can customize the lengths. I recommend if you do get this that you use Kobicon connectors, and I have wiring diagrams for that on our website. And if you win this and you have questions about how to wire it, I can reference, or Mejia can reference for you those links to how to actually wire it so that you can do reverse polarity or standard polarity or whatever's, or if you want to make a Y cable or a splitter cable or a voltage doubler, we have diagrams for how to do all that stuff. So don't be afraid. If you win this, you'll have some support visually with those diagrams. So the question I'm going to put up on the screen, and first person to answer correctly in the chat will win this item. The question is, name 2 devices that could turn a passive effects loop into an active effects loop. Name 2 devices that could turn a passive effects loop into an active effects loop. Now, this is a little bit tricky because this wasn't explicitly mentioned in the video last week, but if you've been following along generally, I think that you will certainly know the answer to this. And there's more than 2 devices that do this, but we're just asking for 2. They could turn a passive loop into an active loop. 2 devices that could turn a passive loop into an active loop. And Total Evo got this one. The ones I was thinking, you could use the Vertex Boost. You could use, I think the better option, honestly, is probably using the Kleinulator, which is basically like a dumbbelator. But also, Fuchs makes one. Andy Fuchs makes one, and that's a tube-based version of a dumbbelator, which is also very good. Those are 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. There may be more. But if you didn't win, no problem, because we still have another 8 minutes left, and I got some beautiful 20 feet of Bestronix patch cables that I'm going to be giving away, and you can customize your own patch cable. This is a great low-capacitance braided shield patch cable that you can win. So hang out, because we still got another giveaway happening in 8 minutes. But let's take some more questions. Let's see. I had the original Vertex Boost, but didn't use the expression pedal out. Does the new one have one? Yes, exactly the same. It's the only difference is that the new one, in order to make it smaller, is using an 1/8" TRS plug instead of a 1/4 inch, because there's no way to fit a 1/4 inch plug on the back without, or we couldn't make it smaller with using a 1/4 inch plug. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So same exact circuit, and we added a buffered return so that you could use it as a dual buffer. But ostensibly, I think for most people, they'll never notice that difference. But it's just to give it a one more extra usage that the original one didn't do. But I think that would be a fringe application for most people anyway. SCW Audio, what are your thoughts on cloning pedals without mentioning what the pedal is based on? I think it's a sensitive subject, certainly for the gatekeepers, but the reality is that most analog pedals are all clones, even the ones that purport to be original. There's very little that has never been done in some fashion before, and most people are still, utilizing designs that were derivative of National Semiconductor app notes, the application notes of the different components that were sold through National Semiconductor. And so, it starts to become a one-upmanship of, sort of like outrage about understanding these circuits. And I find that most of the guys that are actually responsible for a lot of these designs, they're the least outraged, because they understand the lineage and they understand how they had sort of interpreted these application notes of using transistors or using JFETs or whatever it is that they were using to create either distortion pedals. This is more true of analog, especially distortion and overdrive pedals. They understand that lineage, and they're not upset by that because they understand that it's like laying claim to a chord combination or something like that. It's kind of like they have enough understanding of the technology to know that they're kind of not the ones that were the inventors of that particular technology. And usually the people that I see that are most dogmatic, that say they have this original overdrive or whatever it is, it's like they're either inflating their contribution, or they don't have a full understanding of the body of work that pre-existed them. And so some guys will do these circuits where they do like 5 steps forward and 3 steps back, and they kind of have this really roundabout way that could have been more efficiently done, and it would have resembled something maybe they recognized more clearly on a schematic, and they think that makes it original. And it doesn't really make it original. It just is this thing that required 5 extra components where it could have used 1 to get to the same place. And so there's a lot of that goes on. And I think that, obviously if it's like a blatant fuzz face, say that it's a fuzz face. But I think that there tends to become a nuanced approach to this stuff that is often unacknowledged. And the people that are most dogmatic are generally the people that don't have the biggest understanding, and the guys that are really the founding fathers, the Mount Rushmore of guitar pedal sort of inventors of the circuits. They tend to not be that upset by this because they sort of have this understanding, or at least that's been the experience that I've seen. When you talk to a Craig Anderton or a Jack Orman or somebody like that, they don't have that point of view or perspective, or at least that I've seen them share or express. So I think that's kind of where I think it is. And I think some people do a better or worse job of that. I think it depends on, the individual and where they how much they feel like it's being borrowed versus, obviously a soul food, I don't know the degree to which they said that was a clone, but I think it was pretty obvious what it was. I think it really depends. And if it's an obvious clone and you're, like if you're trying to make an exact copy of a blues breaker or whatever, I think it would be in your favor to say it, not because you're trying to hide anything, but people love that circuit, and that's kind of part of the selling point. Like you'd want people to know that it's a blues breaker because it's a great pedal, iconic in our industry. I think it's a complicated question, though. I mean, this is kind of one perspective or one side of the perspective of it, and I think that it'd be interesting to hear from people that feel like they've been cloned unfairly, and to hear their reasons for why. And also it'd be interesting to see how it actually affects their business. Because I think that also there's this thought that if you get into cloning, that's if somebody clones your device, that somehow it affects your business, or like that it's, like we had the Nux, or the New X, as I've been corrected, made a clone of, or made at least an aesthetic visual interpretation of one of our pedals. And we sold like way more pedals that month, and it's continued to stay high. So I don't know that there's really an effect. I think people who are into like budget versions of a pedal are going to be into budget versions, and the people that are want the real thing, it's always going to be the methadone for the real thing. So that's kind of what I've seen in reality. But I'm always open to talking to a manufacturer that feels like they have a different perspective on it. I'm always curious to hear, people that have been more directly affected by it than I have. I have no claim to any originality in the stuff that we do. I think our Boost is probably the most original of any of the devices that we've done, but it's still, you could point to 1,000 different things that might have been like it before it. Let's go to some other questions. I think I lost my position. All right, this is Edbert. For the new Vertex Boost, can you use it with an expression pedal, or can you only use it with a volume pedal? You can use it with either. So if you use it with an expression, you'll just need to use a TRS to TRS, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. If you're using it with a volume pedal, you'll need to use an insert cable, so 1/8 inch split out to 2 1/4 inch mono cables. Either way will work. And we make cables for both. Hosa makes cables for both. The quality of the cable really doesn't matter in this particular context from a sonic standpoint. Maybe in terms of the reliability. I've seen some issues with some of the cheaper 1/8 inch cables where the molding kind of encroaches on the actual plug. And so it doesn't get a really good fit into the actual 1/8 inch jack. Whereas like the higher quality ones, like the Switchcraft and the Neutrik, like the stuff that we use, like it really locks in there. So that's been just one of the shortcomings that I've seen of some of the cheaper molded versions. But in terms of the sound, it's not like you got to invest in, a really expensive cable in order to get it to work or sound good. It's so low impedance in that loop that it really is not going to matter anymore. All right, we've elapsed on time for our last giveaway question, and then I'll take more questions after it. I'll try to get through as many as I can. But this last giveaway item is for our patch cables. Or not our patch cables, but our friends over at Bestronix who provided these. This is 20 feet of their small diameter patch cables, perfect for SP400s or SPS4s. The question is, name 3 ways that you can use the Vertex Boost MK2 in your rig. Name 3 ways that you could, not that you would or that you will, but that you could wire the Vertex Boost into your rig. 3 applications that it could be used for. And then we'll go back to more questions. We're live streaming, sweethearts. Oh, Zeke is coming. Okay, our dog's coming in. And that was Carlos Jr. that got this one. You could have said multiple different things here. Just to name a few, you could have used it as a dual buffer. Could have been one application. You could have used it post overdrive as sort of like a master boost. You could have used it before overdrives. Let me try that one again. Before overdrives. And you could use it as or in the effects loop. These would all be different ways that you could talk about using it. These would all have worked for your answer to the question. But thank you, Carlos, for answering that correctly. We'll make sure that we get you that 20 feet of patch cables so that you can get your pedal board all nice and built up. Cool. Let's go to some more questions, and I'll try to spend maybe another 10 or 15 here, and then we'll move on to our private stream, which is available to anybody who is a supporting member. And you can become a supporting member if you simply just go to therigdr.com or you go to our Patreon site, and you can sign up there. We have memberships as low as $4.99 a month, as well as an opportunity for a free account. If you can't afford any of the account levels, that is not a problem. We don't want anything to stand between you and Great Tone. So you simply can send us an email, info@vertexeffects.com or info@therigdr.com, and request a free account. It's totally anonymous. Nobody knows if you've requested a free account. They have no idea about your account status. You'll have access to these live Q&As that we do that are private to our supporting membership. So please feel free to do that if you can't afford any of the memberships. But we have plenty of different membership versions. Some of them are just the $4.99. They give you the live Q&A and some deals and discounts and early access to Vertex products and RigDR products like cables and tie-down mounts and Velcro and stuff like that. But there's also other ones that include private consulting. If people want to ask questions about their rig, they can get one-on-one Zooms and stuff like that. So check it out if that's something that you're interested in. If it's not, just treat it like a t-shirt. Just put it back on the shelf if you don't like it, and no harm done there. So let's go to some more questions, and then we'll try to spend about 15 minutes or so. And again, if I don't get to your question, I'm sorry, but you can copy and paste it and put it in the comment section, and people will tell you I usually try to answer almost every one of them. There's rarely one that escapes me, so I try to get through most of them. So this is from Vince. How can I build an RGM bank up, bank down switch? I have a diagram of it on the Vertex website. If you just go to, like, I think it's in the blog section. It should be like in the last maybe 10 things that are posted there. Just requires 2 momentary switches and a TRS jack. Could you share your thoughts on hosted cable products? My music store is always suggesting them as they're affordable, but I suspect that might sacrifice quality. I think that they're fine if you're using it for the boost. I don't think that they're the best if you're using them for just connectors for guitar pedals and stuff like that. I think that they're sort of like an entry-level kind of solution. They're functional. I just, compared to a Mogami, I don't think that there's any contest. Do I think the Klon should be that expensive? I mean, it should be as expensive as people are willing to pay for it. It doesn't cost that much to make, so the relativity of the cost. But I don't think even the main guy, Bill Finnegan, is getting the money from these used sales. I think he would only profit for stuff that he's selling new, and I think that. I don't even know if he's making the KTR anymore, but it was certainly way less expensive than anything that you could buy online. So the question is, how much should it cost to make? I would suspect, as knowing manufacturing and the quantities they were building Klons in, I think that the Klon shouldn't cost more than to make $100. And I'd say a lot of that's going to the die cast of the enclosure, the circuit board and stuff like that. It's all cheap components, not expensive pots. He's using full-size pots. The dual gang one might be a little more. The knobs, those are pretty available now. So let's just say worst case $100. Then it's usually a 4x markup, so at market $400. I'd say that's probably what it should cost if it were being manufactured. But that's not the case because they don't make the Klon anymore. So that's what you're seeing. Let's see. What shampoo and conditioner does Mason use? I don't use conditioner because my hair is really, really oily naturally. And if I use conditioner, I will look homeless by the time it's noon. Like I haven't washed in months. So I don't use any conditioner. And then my wife takes care of this stuff. I think it's Kevin Murphy is what it's called. Kevin Murphy is the name of the shampoo. I guess he's a guy that makes shampoos. But yeah, I would say don't use what I use because I have really bizarre hair in that regard, and I'd say it's way more oily. This is probably TMI for most of you than a normal person's hair. Like I have to wash my hair every day. Otherwise, it looks pretty gnarly. It's like I literally washed my hair like 2 hours ago. And if I don't do it, then it'll look pretty obvious that I didn't wash my hair. Like one day for me is like a week for a normal person. Maybe that's a sign of something. I don't know. Any doctors in the room? Let's see. If my amp has a passive effects loop, do I still need a buffer pedal going into the PVC 6X? I want to use my amp's effects loop. Sorry, I'm moving this up because there's like a thing in the way on my screen. I want to use my amp effects loop for my modulation, and I don't know if I could just rely on the PV. No. So basically the challenge to this is that the buffer needs to be on the send, right? It needs to be as close to the send, because if you go 20 feet of cable and then put a buffer, you're not getting a buffer on the send. You're getting it after 20 feet of cable, and the problem is the send driving the line. So this is why you need something like the clinulator and put it like Velcro to the back of your amp or on top of the head, and you have a really short cable that's going from the send into it, and so that buffer can drive the long line going to the amplifier. That's really what you need. It doesn't help you if the buffer is at the end of the line. It needs to be at the beginning of the line. So it won't help you in this case. You really need to have something like the clinulator or the equivalent that Fuchs makes, or you could use the Vertex Boost. But honestly, I think that the clinulator is sort of a better fit for this application. I mean, we're sort of, I don't think it's totally the same as like forcing a round peg into a square hole. The Vertex Boost can do it. You sacrifice some things though, because if you're using the level control to compensate, for any sort of level boost or makeup for line versus instrument, if you're using it for attenuation or for boost, you can't then double it up as a boost, because you have to leave it set there so that it doesn't blast all the pedals that are coming after it, or it doesn't make up enough gain to bring the output back to where it should be to get back to line. So I think that it's sort of a compromise. If you use it in that way, you could use it that way. I just don't think it doesn't give you the most function out of the boost at that point. So I think that's why the clinulator would be better. But no, it's not going to help you to have the buffer on the PBC6 because it's too far away from the amp, and so you've already diminished the tone at that point. Let's see. This is from Giovanni. When are we getting the Ultraphonics in a smaller case? Well, I'll give you a little preview since you're here. I got my smaller case here. This is my prototype Ultraphonics MK2. It's got an extra knob that wasn't on there before, but that's going to be a secret. You're going to need to figure out what that's for momentarily. But yeah, I need to load them into my enclosure boxes just to make sure everything fits. But basically, the color of it will be the same thing. It'll just be silk screened, appropriately, and have, obviously it'll have knobs on it. But should be coming pretty soon. I'm thinking they'll be at market in maybe like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. We're kind of in the home stretch where everything's kind of like, final articles, and then we'll get them going. And I think everybody's sold out of MK1s anyway right now, so I don't think that the cat's not really out of the bag at that point. I don't think we have any Ultraphonics anywhere. Like we've been scouring for dealers to try to find dealers that still have stock, because there isn't any. So if you can find an MK1, it'll be the last of them. Yeah. I'm an electric violinist trying to blend balanced mic and active internal pickup and or passive contact piezo to capture the tone. Can you discuss using the combination of input option paths? Well, most people that use like violins or things like that, they'll usually have to use something that like a mixer of some kind so that they can start to put unbalanced effects in with it if that's what you're planning to do with the violin. So one that's really popular that I see a lot of people use, Eventide has one called like the Link or something like that. But the better one I think is made by Radial, and it's called the Voco Loco. It's a terrible name, but it is a great product where it's taking those balance lines or XLR lines or TRS lines, and it's converting them into unbalanced and then brings them back to balanced again to go to the mixer. And you have mix controls on the actual device itself, and you have bypasses. So you can go back to dry violin again, or you can bring in the wet effect. Or what I like to do is I replace the mix pot with a jack so that I can use an expression pedal to blend in. So you could just kill the mix and you're back to dry violin, and then you can mix in the effect. And so that can be a really cool way where you can blend sort of the mic or the piezo in with unbalanced effects and still have a totally balanced out that's hitting the mixer that has your violin in it, and then you can blend in effects, or if you kick the expression back and it's totally dry, it's just violin. And we're working on a rig right now for Dave Cause, not a violin player, but a sax player, which is basically going to be utilizing that sort of idea, but obviously with the saxophone being mic'd, and bringing in some cool effects there with the mixer. Let's see. Does the Boost MK there's no Boost MK3, but MK2 I think is what you mean. Works last in the chain if I use it as a dual buffer. So it just depends on how you plug into it. So depending on if you want to be able to manipulate the position of the boost, you're going to need to get an insert cable where the 1/4-inch ends are female so that you can plug into it in different places. And I can give you a diagram on how to do that, but basically there's a buffer on the input and there's a buffer on the return, and the boost is on the return side. So you have to just plug into it accordingly so that you can utilize that boost and make sure that it's wired to the end. So I can give you I can send you a link to the actual product if you want to buy like a HOSA cable that does this, or we can make you one that does this. It just depends on where you plug in to the send versus return of the expression loop and where that comes into the signal path. So you can have it wired into either place, first or last. Is it important to get a compressor and booster at the same time in my pedal board? No, I don't think so. I don't think you need to have both. I mean, you don't need to get both. They're not redundant effects, though. They're kind of doing two different things. Vince says, I tried the RJM bank up, bank down on your side, and it doesn't work with my PVC or Stomp. Any tips? Well, I wired one like that for an HX that we did for that bass rig a couple months ago or a month ago, and I have one on my my PVC 6 right now that bank up and bank down. It's that exact same way. So I wonder whether there's something that's not being implemented properly. So maybe send me a photo of what you got going on inside, and I can see if I see anything that looks up with it. Sorry, I saw a funny response to one of the questions that Hoot is, where it just says Beyond. Somebody wrote as a comment Beyonce. I'm guessing that's who does Justin Derrico play with, but just seeing it in isolation was kind of funny. Let's take a couple more questions, and then we'll move on to our private stream from here. Let's see. Dave, you love all three of your boosts. You got 3 of them. Wow. Hopefully some of them are the new one. I have your steel string. It's awesome. I have a question. I have a lot of popping going on in my rig every time I click on certain pedals. Well, it could be the pedals. It could be the power. It could be the impedances that are going on between the pedals. It could be a bunch of different things. I would say I would try each of the pedals in isolation with the battery if you can, or an isolated power supply, and see if on their own that they create this problem. So in that way you can identify that it's not actually the pedals and it may be something else going on in your rig. But just knowing what you've told me here, it's not enough information for me to know, because it could be a lot of different things, or it could be a combination of multiple things. Would you place the boost in an NS2 loop? No, probably not, because the boost is not going to create any noise on its own. You really would want to reserve a noise suppressor for stuff that's adding to the overall noise floor in a dramatic way, so like overdrive devices or the preamp section of your amplifier. Let's see. Clon into TS or TS into clon. I think most people that I see use the tube screamer into the clon. I think that's right. I think that's how we see most people using it. I never really use them together that often, so it's not really a concern for me. But I think most people that I see, they use the tube screamer before the clon. I think that's how they use it. Let's see. What do you think about the PRS special semi-hull? I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what the PRS models are. What's your favorite noise gate? Just got a Stone Deaf Noise Reaper. I saw ISP released a mini. I'm tempted to get one. I think that the NS2 is fine. I think that it's certainly serviceable. I think ISP is kind of like that one, and the Zool I think are kind of considered to be the gold standards amongst guys that like really utilize noise gates. But for Tosin, we used an NS2. He kind of uses it less as a gate and more as like a real effect. But I think probably my vote would be the Decimator. I haven't tried a Zool, but I know a lot of guys that I know that utilize noise gates in all their rigs. They say, "Oh, the Zool's great." You know, I haven't tried it, so I don't know much about it in terms of how it's built or how it's made or anything like that. But those are the ones that I hear about most through the grapevine. So my default, if I were just to go pick one for myself, I'd probably get a Decimator. But the Zool might be cool. No intent to rhyme there. We'll do one last question, and then we'll move on to our private stream. And just want to give everybody a heads up: if you want to be a part of the private stream, we have a free account option. You can email us info@vertexfx.com or info@therigdr.com, where we offer 100% of our requests for free accounts. Again, if you can't afford any of our account level memberships on Patreon or on therigdr.com, please don't be bashful. We are happy to have you a part of the community. And again, it's all anonymous. Nobody knows who has a free account or who has a paid account. It's not public information. So you don't have to be bashful at all about it. Please do request that if you need it. We don't want there to be anything that stands between you and Great Tone. So please feel free to request a free account if you think it's going to be of value to you. And if you didn't get your question answered, I'm sorry. There's one person that gave us a thumbs down. And that person could have just, maybe that's not why they gave it a thumbs down, but they could just easily copy paste their comment into the comments section as soon as the stream is over. So make sure that you locate the comment that was unanswered of yours if there was an unanswered comment, and I will answer it over the weekend. So just copy paste it. As soon as I end the stream, the comment section will show up. You might have to refresh, throw your comment in there, and I will answer it as soon as I can at some point over the weekend. So last question. Would it be all right to put a Third Man Records plasma coil fuzz, I don't even know what that is, behind a buffer in the beginning of the signal chain? Also, would it be okay to put a crybaby after a buffer? Okay, I don't know what this Third Man Records plasma coil fuzz is, but let's just pretend it's impedance sensitive. If it is, I would say put it before any buffering. Equally, with the crybaby, that one, the Q one, I think has like all these little bells and whistles. I would try it. Some of those some of the vintagey wahs can sound really bad with a buffer running into them. I would try it both ways. That one may have enough bells and whistles on it where it maybe doesn't sound that vintagey anyway, so it may not be such a compromise. But my instinct would tell me put the fuzz or put the wah first, then the fuzz, then go into your input buffer. That would be what my instinct would say. But again, you can try it yourself and see what you think. That's how I would do it. So again, if you didn't get your question answered, I'll give you a few moments to locate it, to copy it, and then once the stream is over, you'll be able to paste it. If you haven't given us a thumbs up and you like the stream, please give us a thumbs up. It goes a long way in sort of optimizing this video so that more people might watch it if it's something that they would be of interest or that would be of interest to them. So please do give it a thumbs up if you haven't already. Again, that goes a long way. I see that we have people here that may not have already given it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you didn't like it, tell us, because I think it's important to know either way. If it's bad, we should know about it. If it's good, we should know about it. So tell us by way of your vote with your thumbs. Copy your question if you didn't get it answered, and we'll move on to the live stream. For live stream folks, for our paid live stream, Mejia is sending out the link if he hasn't already, and for the Patreon people, it will be posted in Patreon, so you can follow up with us there, and we'll start it in a couple of minutes after we end the stream. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.